Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Hey everyone, we are back with another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we go around the Icon ecosystem and bring you all the latest news, everything that's happened in the week. And with me, as always, is Icongrapher. How are you today, Icongrapher?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I keep saying this back at my day job, so yeah.
Wah, wah.
Apart from that, yeah, exactly. Apart from that, everything else is great.
Well, yeah, it's nice to see kind of a steady climb as far as the markets are concerned. ICX has gone up, feels like, I don't know, 10 cents a week kind of on average for the last 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. And so it's nice. It feels like a little healthier growth. I know, after the initial kind of downfall, it like it dipped into the 80s and then it bounced back. I think it went all the way to 130. And mentally, I was kind of like, oh, good, that was a quick bounce back. We're on our way back. But I think in retrospect, that was probably too quick of a snapshot or a slingshot back to where it probably wasn't sustainable, and it ended up not being. So the fact we're making more of a gradual kind of move up, and it looks like the whole market as a whole is, including Bitcoin getting back into those mid 40s range, and that's certainly nice to see as well. So it sounds like kind of that lower 40s area, as far as Bitcoin was concerned, was kind of the area to break through, and there's a bit of a floor there. I guess support is what they call it. So that's just kind of what I've seen and heard. I don't know how, that obviously nothing's certain, but certainly nice to see a bit more sustained momentum from Bitcoin in the whole market, rather than just kind of like having one good week of a green candle and then kind of bouncing back down to that, boring stage we were in for a couple of months there.
Yeah, look, especially ICX on the 4 hour, we've got a solid trend, like all the way from 63 cents. It's just been followed that trend line beautifully. So, trend is your friend. But overall, yeah, markets have been great. I mean, even the on-chain data is showing that whales are still accumulating. It is highlighting we don't have retail FOMO again yet. But
Which is probably good
yeah,
because
yeah.
it shows there's more kind of more internally sustainable kind of growth here. And so obviously the retail can just be very fickle. So if they're
Mm.
the ones driving it, then I get a little worried, if that makes sense.
Exactly, exactly. So we're still seeing lots of
That's how you end up
large
with the dog
buys.
coins trading at That's how you end up with the dog coins trading at crazy valuations. That's when you
Exactly.
know retail's around.
Well, what isn't it? What's that SHIB coin? I read yesterday, Moon 50%. It's like, alarming signs right there. If it's out of the blue, just starting to moon again. But
Right,
look.
yeah.
I think overall, yes, the BTC has entered this range where everyone's like, it isn't it a constant. Oh, once we climb 33, once we climb 35, once we climb 40, once we climb 43. Now we're at 45, I believe, and the next target's well, once we hit 53, I'll feel safer.
Right,
But
right.
it's the nature of it, isn't it? So we've had a good climb. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we just see a little bit of a small correction, kind of to market needs to correct. It's been going up
Healthy,
consistently. Yeah,
healthy.
exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Okay. Enough market talk. I love chatting markets with you, but let's dive straight in. We got a lot of news to cover this week. First on the list is you know what, Icongraph? I noticed you put this information in here right at the end. So if you didn't know, I have it on screen. So I caught up with the Iconist, Dean from the Iconist, and we did a bit of a story on myself and how Ion Icon came to be. So if you haven't checked it out, yeah, if you're interested, check it out. We'll put it in the show notes. But what's cool about the article, apart from anything about me, is I actually talk about a few things regarding the latest version of the metrics app that we are working on in the background. No information has leaked of this yet. In fact, I'm surprised I gave this to the Iconist as an exclusive. Iconographer, what was I thinking? Oh, But
it's good to build relationships with the other media. So there's
That's
always
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in like if you want some information around that, definitely go to the article. And we talk about Rhizome DAO and a few other things, which it was just great to talk to Dean, and as Icongrapher said, these times at the end of it, I always start to have cheeky conversations, and even with Dean is talking about Icon Loop and getting more news from there. So I enjoyed the article and the catch up as well. On Ion Icon news, just quickly, since we've got it at the start, we are trying to build a bit of a community around Ion Icon. The goal here with our show is to get the news of the Icon ecosystem. It is to interview everyone building, but it is also to expand. We always keep coming back to this. It's with BTP, we are going to be expanding to different chains, and it's probably our business as iconists to know what these chains offer and what is their kind of trump card. Each chain has its own focus, I guess. So the goal is to expand there. So first, I thought we all thought, well, let's get a bit of our own community going, and then we'll start covering a lot of the other ecosystems news, and hopefully build people via our Telegram group, our Discord group. So on my screen, thank you, Icongrapher, for giving us a few different NFTs. And this right now, there's just one to win, but we'll kick off a few of these to bring people into the Ion Icon community. But thank you, Icongrapher, for donating that. And that comp is live for 7 days now. The current token is the Balance token Genesis, the NFT Silver Edition, which did you say, Icongrapher, it's trading for 175 ICX
Yeah,
now?
well, it's everything went on sale at 15 ICX. So, and there's still some as of this listening, there's still some other moments that are silver and bronze that have some for sale if anyone wants to buy one. But as far as the balance token is concerned, it was very high demand. It went out. Everything's entirely sold out. So the only way to get one now is secondary market or to win this win this one in the giveaway. And yeah, the most as far as kind of figuring out what the price of this is now on the secondary market, the most recent sale of the balanced silver was 175 ICX. So for whoever who bought it at 15 ICX, a nice little, I don't know, what is that, 12x, something like that. So
Mm,
um,
huge.
certainly certainly at least at the moment has a bit of value on the secondary market. So certainly a nice thing to win if you're fortunate enough.
Yeah, agree. And look, if you haven't seen it already, please get on. You have to join Telegram, Discord, retweet it. And to everyone who has done it and listening, I'll ask a small favor, and this will show how many listeners we have on the show that want to build a community as well. Is get on that tweet and actually tag a few people you may know who would be interested in the comp and listening to the podcast. I didn't include this in the comp, a bit of an oversight. We'll do it in future ones, but why not? Ask our fans at the moment to jump in and let's try and do this together. But yeah, there'll be a few more. Icongrapher has been very generous and donated a few to the show for Iron Icon, so we'll definitely get that out to everyone, all our listeners. So that's the giveaway promotion. And the last part, I think this is a good one. If you haven't already, I caught up with Brian and a new team member for Coda, who's named Arun. And if you haven't listened to it, I really encourage you to give that podcast a listen. What I did, it started a bit different. I took a little bit of a takeaway, something Brian commented right at the end of the interview, and stuck it at the start to give a bit of context, and then listen to Brian. And why I think this is really good to listen to is just hear Arun talk through his career, and he will really call out and go, yeah, actually, it's nothing to do with blockchain, but you can see what Brian's trying to do with Coda. They're trying to get into the arts and music industry, and he is recruiting talent of all sorts within that industry who understand that industry, and he will utilize his blockchain skill set to kind of make this what Coda is about a reality. So I'm not giving any more than that. Just I encourage you, give it a listen. Listen to Arun's resume. I actually had to kind of, I felt intimidated post his his spiel to go. Oh shit! I need to interview him, ask him for further questions. But yeah, it was a good one. I really enjoyed it. So jump on definitely and give it a listen. What else have we got, Icongrapher? Enough about Iron Icon and all our stuff that we do.
Yeah, so I guess it's our, yeah, our weekly balance segment, which we just kind of had just because there's always something to talk about as far as the protocol is concerned. There was I guess it was technically the second governance vote to happen on the platform this last few days, and what it did is it basically created greater alter the threshold as far as how much collateral needed to be put up in order to take out a loan. And so what happened is it passed almost unanimously. I think it was 97 or 98% in support of it. Basically lowers the amount of collateral you need in order to take out a loan. So this had two nice things about this. Is over 1,100 individual voters participated in this, which is a pretty significant show of governance participation. I think it was Brian who did a tweet thread kind of talking about other protocols, saying, hey, here's this major protocol that had like 10 people participate. Here's this one that had X number, whereas we're at several hundred people. So I don't know if that was entirely apples to apples, because this is obviously pretty significant, and I don't know if the other ones were, but nonetheless, it's still 1,100 is a lot more than 10. That's for sure. So just shows how much passion is really behind that community. And it did pass. So now, if you want to go, if you have a loan taken out and you want to take out more of a loan without adding more collateral, you have that ability now. Obviously, there's greater risk going into that, so make sure you're cognizant of that and managing your risk correctly there. But what was nice is there were two benefits to that. It looked like the price of the balance token went up. I don't know if necessarily that was directly attributable, but I think my theory would be people took out BNUSD as a loan, and then with their BNUSD bought up some balanced tokens. And then the other benefit was when you checked your staking rewards this morning from the network fees, they were pretty significantly higher, and that's because a lot more people took out loans, and obviously with every loan that gets taken out, fees get added. So I can't remember to what exactly the amount. I thought I saw the number 1.4 million floating around as far as the impact that had, but I don't want to say that for sure because I can't remember entirely off the top of my head. So that was certainly encouraging. In addition, there was also a new proposal put up by Scott Smiley, aka Benny Options, on social media channels of the Balance team, who I'm sure everyone's familiar with. Basically, there's a tokenomic model that Curve initially started. Curve being the protocol on Ethereum that allows stablecoin trading, and what it is it essentially, in order to, you can take your, in this case, it's the CRV tokens. In the case of Balance, it'll be the Balance tokens, and you can lock them up for a period ranging up to 4 years. I think with Curve, it starts at 1 month. I can't remember if the proposal is similar for 1 month for Balance, but basically one month to 4 years. If you stake it for 4 years, you essentially get to boost your earnings. And so what it does is if you say, okay, I'll lock up my balance for 4 years, you get a 2.5x boost on your earnings, meaning essentially instead of having 100 BNUSD and balance in the LP, it treats it like you have 250. So you get a 2.5, and then over time that number goes down more and more and more. It kind of decays. So it's a little bit complex. I encourage you to read through it, but I think the gist of it is essentially it has a couple benefits. For one, it encourages and incentivizes people to stake their tokens for the long term in order to maximize the amount of profit they're earning. So rather than, I think there's people out there who probably immediately earn their balance and then dump it just for the sake of earning their yield, which is totally fine. And that's how a lot of people will, it doesn't really become yield until you convert it into actual money from the perspective of a lot of people. But in this case, by doing that, you're kind of hurting the amount of money you can make because you're essentially capping your earnings. And so it tilts the incentive toward putting your balance away for up to 4 years. You don't have to do 4 years. You can do 2 years. Just get a minute, that'll reduce the kind of earning power that you have there. And so you can obviously see, by staking, by locking away, by reducing the supply, by reducing the amount of going out on the open market, why that would be good for the tokenomics. It also makes people less fickle. If your balance is locked away for 4 years, you don't really care what the price is right now, and you're less likely to kind of, if it dips, you're not going to freak out and panic sell. And if it goes up, I guess you can still kind of panic buy. But as far as reacting, people are going to be less inclined to kind of swing trade it and day trade it and whatever else they might be doing, just because again, once it's locked, you can't touch it, you can't transfer it, you can't move it. You got to wait the 4 years or however long it was that you locked it up. And so it helps people have a better long-term view, both in terms of the protocol itself, in terms of, hey, I want this thing to still be around in 4 years, so I'm going to do what I can to make sure it's successful and doing well and bringing a lot of revenue, so that my balance token, when it does get unlocked, is worth way more than it is today. And it also forces people to care a lot less about the day-to-day price of the token and more about kind of how is the protocol doing, how are my earnings doing, that sort of stuff.
So,
So
so I
go
can
ahead.
graph it. Sorry, I wanted to throw a quick question at you.
Yes.
Obviously, it has its levels, right? So 6 months, 1 year. It's not just 4 years. You lock your stash off balanced up, depending on whichever one you choose, and you get the rewards for it. The rewards that you get. So if you lock for 4 years, the stash that you've locked is locked for 4 years, but now you're earning a much higher reward rate. Do you get access to that reward as a daily claim, or does that get locked away for the 4 years as well?
That would be a daily claim. I believe. Well, that's how I believe it works on Curve, and I
Perfect.
believe that's how Scott's proposal is written as well.
Perfect.
So both in terms of your, the additional balance you would earn through staking or providing liquidity, but also it looked like the network fees as well would be treated as if you had kind of, you're essentially doubling the impact of your bound, to where you'll earn up to 2.5x percent, or I'm sorry, 2.5x of the network fees as well, is how
Mm.
I was reading that proposal. So again, just a proposal. It could be adjusted in certain stages. I should also add that it was developed by Curve. Other protocols have decided this is a good tokenomic model. I've also been researching for Equality, the project I'm involved with, which is similar to Curve. I've been doing a lot of research on this too, and it looks like it's pretty. There's a lot of good reasons to implement it. And I guess the gold standard approval would be the fact that Andre Cronje, who is the kind of DeFi godfather to a certain extent. He's built a lot of these protocols, whether it's, I think Urin's the one that stands out the most off the top of my head, but he's been kind of involved in a lot of different things. He got kind of, as far as his involvement in SushiSwap is concerned, they came out with a similar model, and he basically said, he quoted saying, Curve is kind of, we view Curve as the best kind of tokenomic model for this type of protocol, and so we're kind of mimicking it as well too. So even the person who's kind of one of the more original DeFi visionaries has said, yeah, this is the best way to do it. So it's understandable why Balance would want to take it up, and it's obviously understandable why we're very intrigued by it, from the equality standpoint as well.
Yeah. Look, nothing more to add. I personally wanted to clear up. That was a question I was going to ask, but I reckon a lot of people were probably thinking along that line. So how that works, but ultimately, it's great. It's a tried model that has been very successful, and on the flip side, and it's only a matter of time that we start seeing with Optimus. It's coming. I'm sure it's coming soon. But once we start seeing yield aggregators kick off on Icon, their goal is essentially they harvest and sell, right? But this model, what it did for Curve was all the yield aggregators on Ethereum, they all wanted these bonus perks. So in the
They had
background,
to they had to offer the best in order to maximize their own yield for their I don't say customers, but I guess you could say clients or whatever it is. Yeah, they had to basically load up on
hmm
Curve in order to utilize it for that, kind of that boost. So that's the
exactly.
other encouraging part about it.
Yeah. So it's good. It's very good for the protocol, and I think at the end of the day, one of the big things was, this distribution is coming in so hard and fast every day. Obviously, it's impacting the price. Now, this is a great solution. So definitely take the time. I didn't have that on up here. I had all the other the statistics, how many voters and yes and stuff. I had that up, but I didn't load up the site. But definitely we'll put a link and check it out. Read through it. It's interesting stuff. I had to read through it 3 times, even though I had a bit of exposure to Curve. I read through it a few times to just get my head around it. But it's great and very good for the protocol. So that's balanced. Next we have Ohm Iconographer. What's news with Ohm?
Yeah, they basically they've I won't say upgraded, but there's a new version of the testnet. So that's the testnet itself has been up for a little while now, so you can kind of play around with it and get a sense of how Ohm will work. They are basically, I think they're essentially testing out the Ohm reward system mechanism, however you want to say it. And so that is a thing where you kind of earn, as far as I was reading it, you can kind of earn, they're fake, they're testnet OMM tokens, but you can kind of get a sense of how that plays out. But more importantly, what they've said is essentially for the first 2 days of the protocol, you can still, you can still get the other benefits of protocol as far as earning interest and things like that. But as far as the OM rewards, those won't kick in for 2 days. So whatever activity you do over the first 2 days doesn't really count. And I think, I think this is good because might be a situation where, on the day it kicks off, someone's out of town or the time zone's off, or, maybe it took a little longer for them to get their tokens unstaked, whatever it might be. And so it kind of creates more of a fairer initial distribution for everyone to kind of get a hold of, rather than just a few people who happen to be awake at the right kind of time. So I think that's kind of a nice thing. It's only 2 days, and so you can get your tokens in there, start earning the benefits, and yeah, okay, they won't earn own for 2 days, but after a few hours, basically 36 hours, whatever it might be, you'll be able to get them. And so the rewards will begin accruing from day 3, and then you'll start to be able to claim them from day 8, and I believe it's every day beyond that. So essentially, after day 8, it'll operate essentially the same way Balance does. There was just that kind of 2-day delay. So I think probably a good idea. I imagine there might be some kind of disgruntled people who are hoping to kind of get that initial kind of first mad dash at it. But I think even with side, the rewards from the first early days will be pretty lucrative. I think there's a lot of people who want to use Ohm, but maybe say, oh, let me just see how it plays out the first couple of days, just in case there's no issues or anything like that. That's kind of how it was with Balance, where there are people saying, they've been psyched for it for months, but they kind of still said, I'm not going to put money in until I see how, just to make sure everything works out well. So, and that's the kind of the trade-off is you miss out on some of the early rewards, but you obviously, maybe feel a little comfortable knowing that it's been a little bit more tested in the real world.
Yeah, look, agree. I actually love it. I love that they did that first 2 days. That way, it doesn't create this mad dash, and people can explore it a bit more. And yeah, it's great. I jumped in late into the DeFi Academy call that another initiative OM Finance has kicked off. So, and this is what's really cool, right? It's not about just launching the DApp. Yeah, it's a bit delayed, but in the background, the team have been trying to create an environment to educate not just our community, anyone who wants to come along. So they have. It was session 3, and actually in the end I just snuck into the session very late, and I was like, oh, Dakey, I see you on the call, tell us how's the release coming along. And he called this out, which I hadn't realized, and thanks to Donnie for collating this. Look through it, and I think it's brilliant. Yep, perfect. And it's not long now, the final version, I believe, on testnet. So this is kind of exciting. Cool. I think that's Ohm news covered. I can grab it. What else have we got?
Yeah, so as far as craft is concerned, the token they came out with their CFT tokenomics. I don't think these were out last week. I don't think we covered them. So either way, just want to kind of touch upon it really quick. Essentially, every week for 120 weeks, there's going to be 84 million. I guess this is over the course of 120 weeks. There's going to be 84 million CFT distributed to those who are buying and selling on the market. And that itself is cut in half too. So there's a basket. Half of that basket is buyers. Half of that basket is sellers. So if you dominate, if you're responsible for 50% of the buying volume, you're going to get 50% of that allocation. It's not buying and selling. It's kind of two separate buckets. And then there's also 10%, aka 21 million again, distributed over 120 weeks of supply that is dedicated to LP staking, meaning providing liquidity on balanced between CFT and SICX to provide liquidity for people who want to trade it between the two. So definitely some good ways to earn CFT. If you've been buying and selling during the first week on Craft, the token isn't actually live yet. They're still working on implementation, but they are doing snapshots to incorporate what essentially your estimated earnings will be once that gets distributed in probably a few weeks here. So if you've been buying and selling and doing activity on Craft, if you log in with your existing wallet, there should be a little indicator up in the top right corner saying, hey, here's how much CFT we estimate that you'll be earning. It is approximation. I think it's pretty close, but so don't necessarily write that number in stone. But that's certainly exciting. There's plenty of benefits that come with CFT as far as the platform is concerned. Obviously, governance is kind of the main one, but there's other potential benefits as well. I encourage you to read their Medium article to get the full kind of gist on that. Another piece of news is that Wineable, which is an NFT project that I think has been kind of in the works for, I don't want to say a year, but I think getting pretty close now. It came in through a CPS proposal. It was one of the first ones. And what it is essentially the project that is teamed up with an actual winery you can essentially buy a bottle of wine and you can own it as an NFT, which is nice because you can own the wine and kind of speculate on its worth, but you don't have to actually store the wine in a physical place. They do it for you. And if you want to redeem your NFT for a bottle of wine, you can do that. They will mail it to you and you can burn the NFT. So a nice little experiment in terms of kind of a real world overlap between the NFT, or the virtual NFT world and the real world of, wine. And so pretty cool project. And they basically they're in the process of going live. They're doing a pre-sale on Craft, so definitely check them out. Should be pretty easy to find as far as just being able to search that collection. I don't know much about wine, but I'm sure there are people out there who do, and should be an interesting kind of cool little thing. I know there's a lot of excitement for this one that's been building for a while. And also, if you haven't noticed, there are when Craft launched, there were spaceships available for Project Nebula that you could buy. And then they rolled in, and there were the planets are now on there as well, so you can purchase Project Nebula planets on Craft. And most recently, you can also do the art, music, and lore content on there as well. So if you've been able to earn any of that or purchase any of that or whatever it might be, you now have the ability to sell it on Craft. So certainly a nice little partnership between Craft and Project Nebula, two very emergent projects in the space that a lot of people are excited about that both launched within the last couple of weeks here. And just another, as far as Craft is concerned, one of the things I've seen, and it's kind of a tricky situation, is Craft launch. There were certainly some original projects that have been talked about a little bit and kind of built up. But there was other, kind of almost instantly, I started seeing art that was, clearly someone had just copied and pasted it, a different NFT and launched it on Craft. And the Craft terms of service basically say, we're gonna respect copyright and people who are found to be, basically ripping off other projects, they're going to get taken down. And so what happened is, I see a lot of complaints of people saying, hey, I bought this for, 20 ICX, whatever it is, and now it's gone. What's the deal? And essentially, and people getting up, to a certain extent, getting reasonably upset that was happening. But, on the one hand, Craft is, it's decentralized. And so as far as all the transactions are concerned, those are pretty much final, and, it's kind of buyer beware there. But they can still, they still have to kind of manage the content that goes up there and make sure they don't get into trouble from other artists or other websites or whatever it might be. So they're in a bit of a tricky spot, and I think the solution they have is pretty reasonable. And if you're, I think a lot of people by now, if you're in crypto, it's kind of like, hey, some of this art literally it just pops up out of nowhere. People charge 20 ICX, 25 ICX, 100 ICX, 5 ICX, and people just say, oh, that looks fun, let me buy it. And when they find out that it's either ripped off or, nobody wants it or whatever it is, they kind of get upset. And it's kind of like, well, you didn't do any research on it. You just assume that because it's on Craft, it's got to be worth something. So you're just going to, buy the first thing you kind of see. And, I think that there's like anything else in life, usually if you buy something, a little bit about what you're buying. And I know the term aping has become a thing in crypto, and it can be kind of fun and funny sometimes. But obviously, it cannot be too if you lose a lot of money. And so, obviously, there's this instinct to just kind of jump on something while it's still hot. But at the same time, that's kind of how you end up getting burned on a lot of things. So, it's not like I don't think very many people would go invest in a token there where you didn't know who made it, and then there was no explanation of what it was, and anything like that. And so I don't know why people are necessarily doing the same thing with artwork and trying to speculate on that without knowing much about it, and knowing about, are they going to promote it is the artist going to promote it over the long term? How many are there? That sort of thing. It was just kind of like there was that initial kind of gold rush where it was just, hey, I'm just going to buy random stuff. Other people saying, hey, I'm just going to throw random stuff up there. Maybe I'll try to make a money. I think a lot of people were just trying to experiment a little bit and see how it went. And so they kind of borrow something thinking it was kind of harmless. So hard to tell, to what level of maliciousness is out there. But either way, I think people are starting to learn that, just because it's on craft, you shouldn't necessarily buy it. And so obviously some painful lessons to a certain extent, but I think people are starting to understand a little bit better, and that's certainly a good thing for the long term health of the craft and NFT ecosystem.
Yep, a lot there, Icongrapher. Oh, he covered a lot. I will say the Wineable. I've always thought this was cool. Different from art. This gave you an NFT to claim, and I'm not a wino. I would know 2 cents of anything to do with wine, but I just like the idea that there was a physical asset as well that you could redeem it for, which I thought was pretty cool. That's why I like the old gin one that was done as well. I never took part in that, but today I acquired.
Yep.
I bought one of the NFTs now. I don't know how I feel about the randomization of the rarity. Given everyone's getting it at a base price, I guess. But overall, cool. Like, yeah, I've seen it already, in the craft marketplace as soon as the NFT's been sent to my wallet and I could list it for sale, which obviously I'm not. But it's a cool endeavor, and I really hope it sells out very soon. I love this craft. I've actually had it on screen. The integration with Project Nebula, we can see every day new things are getting rolled out. As you call, we had spaceships. I can see my planets now. I've been playing the game and I noticed all my planets popped up with my profile when connected to craft. What I am interested in is, yes, I can see all the artwork, but definitely the artwork hasn't popped up that I've acquired through Gen Zero planets. In my craft profile. I wonder what the process is there. I may start hounding the team to find out, because that's a good one. That's really cool. Something I know, we interviewed Project Nebula and I asked this question, and I don't think they were planning to have it disintegrated so quickly. So obviously they have been smashing it with their workload and getting all this activated, which is good to see. Yeah, really cool. And look, Icongrapher, yeah, even I have to say, I've seen all this stuff. I'm like, I've suddenly gotten FOMO, thinking, holy crap, am I missing out? And I have to recenter myself and constantly think this is no different sometimes to the ICO craze where you just FOMO'd in and lost a lot of money. Control yourself, Fez. Control yourself. So
Yeah, and I think that. And I think the good news is too is that there's more projects that are kind of being official. I would say officially, but clearly onboarded through Craft with with the assistance of the Craft team. If you go on their Discord, there's like official channels for there's official channels for Wineable, for Project Nebula, for Icon Treasury. Gangster Bet's another one that's kind of come out that people are getting excited for. I saw another one that escapes me off the top of my head, but another one popped up too. So I think that's a good resource to kind of figure out which ones. It's a kind of a question of how much effort's being put into them, and if they're going through the trouble of working collaboratively with Craft. I think they're trying to create something that's a bit more sustainable. And I've seen a couple of kind of more kind of casual fan things start to come out. They start to figure it out. There's one there's like a Crypto Aliens one, where they're just getting hand drawn and putting up kind of one by one. And so I think those are starting to catch on a little bit too, because again, it shows that there's a bit more thought put behind it and a bit more care into it. And it's not necessarily a land money grab or anything like that. So
I saw
it's all a process.
I saw just recently, last night before going to bed, I saw Pink Punks, and they've done one of Tony
Yep,
and
those are
Brian.
starting to pop up.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's
And
pretty cool.
at the I saw Geodude posting something where you can
Well,
you buy them as eggs and
Yep.
they hatch. So I think
Yep.
more details will come on that one
Pixels.
too. So
Yeah, Pixels. I
yes,
just saw it. They're
yep.
doing a promo, so we snuck that into the news section. But yeah, that's cool. I know they did a version of that on Ethereum, so um, yeah, it's cool to see how that will evolve as well and what's coming off it. But that's ultimately it, right? Once we have this core infrastructure, and this is where it's not quantity. We've got balance, we've got the money market coming home, we've got now our flagship NFT store, and we have a couple of NFT stores now. And all of a sudden, we can start creating all the stuff that's happening on the other chains. It can actually be done on Icon now, and we're seeing it hard and fast. All this artists are flocking to the store to capitalize on maybe the token mining opportunities, but overall, it is generating a lot of buzz and activity. So I think it comes back down to Icongrapher now. How do we move this from our community, who majority of iconists are probably first time dabbling with a lot of this stuff on Icon because why not? And how do we show the other ecosystems this is what Icon has, and you really got to come play with it here because it's the chain's fast. You don't have to worry about fees, and the UI is just amazing. Which work in progress, so good to see. And BTP, obviously we keep saying BTP will, but even before that we can actively keep reaching out to communities, which I believe they're doing as we're seeing more partnerships even for craft. There was one they've just announced, Kitty, but yeah, they're going
That
and
was the one I was. Yeah,
yes,
that was the one I noticed that I couldn't come off the top of my head.
yeah, cool, okay. I
But I
think
think by the time I think they're doing their sale tomorrow. So by the time you're listening to this, I think they'll be doing. You'll probably have heard of them by the time you listen to this if you hadn't heard of them already.
yeah, yeah. Excellent. You know what? It's great. I'm really excited for that level up. The gangster bet stuff. I think it's really cool because it's I like the gamification aspect the
Yeah, it's more
NFTs can give.
dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and it's what makes it unique, right? Like yeah, pictures are great. All well and good, but that gamification, you can come back and kind of, I don't know. I'm a gamer, that's why I feel that way. But yeah, cool. Okay, that's enough. That's a lot of craft news as well. Next up, we have so we got a bit of a announcement from my ID. So it was
Min
around.
Circle posted about it. Yeah,
Yes,
he's
Min
kind of
Circle.
the
That's it. I've
yeah.
got him on
Yep.
the page. Yeah. So, we've seen a new bank that is going to be using. They've kicked off their own did that is based off my ID. So that was cool. We haven't had news around this for a while, and it was just reinforcing that this is still being adopted. A solution that is provided by Icon Loop is still being adopted by banks, and they're rolling out their services through it. Now, keeping in mind initially, it's only that first registration that puts a transaction on the chain, but overall it's adoption that we want, right? And there's been a bit of a hiatus on a bit of this information flowing through, so it was great to see this post. It was great to see a new bank join these the partner circle, and yeah, hopefully we start seeing more information flow around this.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's more about creating what'll help us over the long term is creating the network effect to where it's not just DID, but it's the way DID interacts with other aspects of the blockchain and things like that. And this is still it's still a ways off. This is NH Bank is not just some small little rinky-dink thing. It's this pretty serious financial institution, as are most of the MyID partners. And so DID, I think, is like kind of the most basic level of blockchain implementation. And so that's kind of, it would make sense that that's kind of phase one because, there's not a lot of moving parts to it. It's fairly, I don't say straightforward, but it's relatively easier to conduct than kind of more complex, transactions, especially across other blockchains. So it makes sense that this would be kind of the first phase of growing that kind of whole MyID ecosystem and starting to plug in other aspects to it. And I think it shows now that it's a very credible sign for not only Icon Loop, but also the fact that it does run on the Icon. MyID does run on the Icon chain, the public chain.
Mm.
It's a nice little show of credibility, support, whatever you want to call it, for the actual Icon network itself. So it's a very it's not going to snap overnight draw in millions of transactions all of a sudden. But it's a pretty big boost to all these news little developments as far as MIDI are concerned are a nice stamp of approval from some pretty serious institutions as far as the Icon chain is concerned.
Yep, agree. Next up, we have the next round of CPS proposals. So we've got 4 in there. And I don't think today we're going to spend too much time digging into it. But it was great to see from this one from iBriz was a good one. Java scores, tutorials, and libraries, much needed. We keep calling out, build that infrastructure and make it easier for more people to just jump on and start building instead of having to dig their way through and figure things out. So this was a good one to see. We have Coda. So, as we called out, if you aren't sure, listen to that podcast, but Coda have come back with a bit of a revised plan for their project. We've seen Spartan Node kick off another piece of work, which was called Icon Real World Tokenization. If you haven't, now I've got this on the screen. If you haven't already, take a look. The teams take a lot of time to put in breakdowns, and I think what I wanted to call out is, this is the transparency nature of CPS, right? And if you're looking at the screen, you can see that the P-reps start to vote on these proposals. Now, when we get closer to day 15 or 14, when it's about to close, you can actually see all the P-reps that have 1, voted, and 2, I guess, approved or denied it. Now, I didn't want to make it about this, but I think it's important because if you see certain teams that are wanting to build things and have built stuff in the past, and all of a sudden, randomly, things are getting knocked back, or teams are rejecting it, and under the rejections section they can actually you can click on it and they can put a reason and put some comments. So if they've rejected it and they're not kind of put a bit of commenting around why they are rejecting someone building something on Icon, you as a voter should start questioning, well, hang on a second, why? This was a great product. This there should be a bit more reason around this, and if there isn't, you should be asking your P-reps in their chats and then thinking about, is this the best place to put your vote of confidence? Now, I mean that for everyone. I'm not singling anyone out at all. It was more, this is how the system is designed. So make sure if you're an iconist that's extremely passionate and getting in there and involved, these are the sort of things you need to check to see, to make sure that it's everyone's kind of working in the best interest of Icon. That's just my 2 cents. But coming back to it, we got Coda. Yeah, we got something Spartan Node, and just a shout out. It's good to see Spartan Node getting back to building and just worrying about that and utilizing CPS the way it should be. And then we have Brian. Brian's busy, so he's got a Coda for Coda, and he's also expanding on his Icon Click Command tool, which he's delivered aspects of it, and now this is the next iteration of it, and we know it's being used successfully, and he's actually helped a lot of community members via this who have been scammed via this command tool to kind of get back their funds very quickly, which is interesting, and well done, Brian. Icongrapher, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much said it, and yeah, it is kind of funny that basically my understanding is that the command line interface it operates much quicker than kind of either a hacker or even their bot necessarily would. So you kind of outflank them, and so it's actually one of those things I figure once a hacker got in your wallet, you're kind of screwed. But if you're able to kind of move more swiftly than the hacker in terms of how the funds get managed, then I guess it makes sense. So certainly a nice tool. Obviously, most people in that situation might not necessarily know how to use it itself, but obviously Brian's been helpful as far as utilizing it, and obviously it's a powerful tool in and of itself.
And we've both zoned in on this because we've just seen it and heard of it in action in this scenario. But there's so many more ways it can be utilized, right? But yeah, it's a good one. Cool. Okay, next up, CPS. We've covered that, so this is good. And actually, one last thing you can see over here. Considerable what we've had approved proposals, 12, and all of them have taken up to 347,000 ICX. So, this is the first time I've actually seen the CPS fund come down to 97,000, the lowest I've seen it. But I'm sure it's due for a top up. A new month has arrived, so we should see the foundation rewards kick into gear. So, one of the last call outs, sorry to harp on about this, but one of the things I think I'm excited about with Icon 2.0 and seeing a lot of that inflation reroute to CPS, the entire network, get pushed through there. We can start seeing projects that go, you know what, I want to focus on building this full time, and that means I will have to ask for, say, 150,000 ICX for the project, and that's fine. If it means it can turn around to build quicker, can get proper teams involved, that's what we want it to get to. We don't want it to be builders in a side hustle trying to keep the price off a proposal low so that it gets approved through CPS. Then we're not kind of building at the capacity and speed that you could if you were dedicated to it. And I think that's where Brian himself was trying to call out with Coda, like, this is what they need to do full time to be able to deliver the product that they've envisioned, and that is needed in the industry. So it's a good one, and I'm very excited. Icon 2.0 is coming soon. It is coming soon. Let's move on. We saw Min. He'd been a little slow, I must say, on tweets, but recently he's come back out tweeting, and he highlighted that they've made a fresh 7-figure investment in the NFT space. More details to come. What do you think, Iconographer?
Well, now I'm just intrigued what it is. I mean, because I know there's been, Marcus has kicked around an idea of kind of an interconnectivity thing, and that could be cool, but I think it's still just very much in the idea phase. So I'm certainly just curious what type of, whether they're supporting infrastructure. I doubt they made a 7-figure investment directly in Craft, because Craft is its own kind of theoretically sustainable tokenomics. So I hope, I'm sure it's one of those things where they're investing in infrastructure now to do something kind of cool, and we'll hear more about it in, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. But nonetheless, it is, for all the concern of everyone always asking, I think this question came up a lot more during the kind of the bear market is, how much does ICX does the Outcome Foundation even have more funds, or, are they going to go out of business or whatever it might be? The fact that they're out there, A, not asking for money, and B, actually, making investments and trying to, both, I don't know if that's necessarily investment where they earn a return on, or if they're just trying to grow the ecosystem, what it might be. But it is nice to see that, there's certainly resources available to, from the foundation standpoint, to continue to grow the mission and community of Icon.
Yeah. Look, agree. And I've always heard comments about this. In the ICO, they've had all this money and they're still holding on to it. It's like, okay, well, that's not a bad thing. If it's mysteriously vanished, then there's a right to complain. But,
Yeah.
But
it's tricky because, on the one hand, either they spend it building the actual chain,
yeah,
and that's bad, or they don't spend it, and, that's bad too. So it's kind of, whenever the price is low, people always look at things through the worst possible case. But I think they've obviously raised it in ETH, but as far as I can tell, they've done a pretty good job managing the money, and this is another sign of that being the case.
Yeah, agree. Look, my only, and I'll be a bit of criticism here, and I would like to see this change. I think we're at this phase now, especially if these investments, like the real estate and stuff, they're to do really with the public chain side of it. It's got nothing to do with Icon Loop. I think we're at the point with Icon, the ecosystem, where we're at in crypto, that we need to see more information rather than vagueness. So even the real estate, we know this has been happening. I know there's a bit of a hiccup with the housing market, etc., but there's no reason why we can't know the name, what the platform will be capable of, how it's going to work, like further detail. Like this is one of the issues I see in the Icon ecosystem that we need to get out of, is we need to just get this information, share it, a bit more detail around it. There's no harm in people knowing it. The other ecosystems are doing this. They haven't even got code, they haven't even got stuff in place, but they'll share a new announcement of a project. We don't have to go to such extremes, but let's start seeing a bit more factual to build that confidence. But overall, great to see him tweeting. Great to see further investments. I would like to see now what these actual investments are in a bit more detail. But yeah, 6 months from now, I don't know. I think I'm starting to feel like I want to see the stuff now. It can launch 1 year from now. I don't care. But the bit of facts around what it is and how it will work and details around it, I'd like to see now. Um, yeah. Look, let's keep moving. The next one we have reimagined, another one, version 10. Okay, and hey, this is quite good. I enjoyed it. As soon as Ricky is on the thing, everyone just went excited. I even saw a tweet. The second that got announced and Ricky was going to be on it, ICX price mooned. What are your thoughts, Icongrapher?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a causation or correlation situation, but nonetheless, it's always Ricky's been kind of a little more behind the scenes lately, so it'll be nice to see him kind of pop out a little more. Hopefully, he's got his appearance brings a bit more new and unique news, but nonetheless, it's always good to see Icon getting their people out there and getting their name out there as well.
Yeah, agree. And the last one was very cool. So let's see how this one goes. I know I watched a bit of it, so I'm keen to see, excited about it. I know it's good to see the community react very positively as well about this. Next up, we have Gnome. He posted on the Icon community the migration plan. This is kind of exciting. Icongrapher, walk us through it.
Yeah, well, it's a bit more, certainly very technical. What it is basically kind of giving guidelines, instructions for peer reps on how to manage the migration from Icon 1.0 to Icon 2.0, as far as making sure that the nodes switch over and all that other good stuff that peer reps do that I'm not as technically inclined to understand. So I won't go into kind of the exact specifics, but what it just shows is we're getting closer and closer to the actual flipping of the switch from into Icon 2.0 and all the other good things that'll bring along with it, whether it's ICE, whether it's BTP, and just whether it's kind of the upgraded blockchain that we've all been excited for over the last few months. And they mentioned that during this upgrade process, the network will be down for probably a couple hours, maybe a little longer if there's any issues that get discovered. And so I did see Fez ask in response, the question of what happens to the various DApps, what happens to balance if there's price fluctuations and things like that. I imagine that's being kind of worked out internally, and we'll get an answer on that. But certainly something I'll be keeping an eye out for as far as getting a good explanation of that. And I think we'll get a lot more details as we get closer and closer, because obviously peer reps need to be in the loop so they can manage it correctly. But obviously, I would they'll want to have the community in the loop too, so that way when the blockchain stops temporarily, people aren't freaking out because they'll know that it's planned and expected.
Yeah, exactly. I think I hadn't looked at the Reddit properly. Then I spent some time yesterday or day before, and that's the first question that came to my mind. And you know what? If you're thinking, well, why hasn't anyone asked this? The fact of the matter is, it's probably been asked in the dev chat. A lot of the Icon communities are on Telegram, and there is a big dev community that have a dev chat for Icon on Telegram, and a lot of these discussions just take place in there. So it was actually really good of Name to kind of pull it out of there and kind of put it on the forums for everyone. I think it's a practice that everyone needs to start doing from the foundation aspect as well, using these forums to get these major pieces of, whether it be infrastructure, tokenomics updates, anything to do with the chain, back into the community. So it was good to see that, and a very detailed update. Very technical. If you care about it, check it out. Cool. Look, the next one is this is a good one. Defi Llama. Balance is now on it, right? Tell us.
Yeah, and so DeFi, for if you're not DeFi Llama is kind of like I guess it's kind of like the coin market cap for DeFi. It's just kind of a good way to lump all the projects together on the various chains. Show their data, how much value is locked up, how much money is moving around, all that other good stuff. And so it's kind of a good place to park some potentially free advertising, some free exposure. And one of the Rhizome DAO members kind of took this upon themselves to do whatever steps are necessary to get balance listed on DeFi Llama. So a nice place a nice resource for obviously there's some data on balance itself, but just kind of an external source, and obviously something else that people can stumble upon. People who are interested just in DeFi generally, maybe they'll see, hey, are there, what protocols are emerging that could be interesting to participate in, and obviously balances figures, there's certainly, I think that it's like $160 million total value lack, so certainly nothing to sneeze at by any means. So some nice exposure for balance and some nice initiatives shown by the Rhizome DAO.
Yeah, look, I just had it on screen and then I started pushing some buttons and lost it. But I think it was up to 180. Maybe I wasn't looking. But yeah, it's a great. Yes, close to 100. Oh no, 170. My bad. Yep, you're right, Icongrapher. But yeah, it's great. And this all just came about in the DAO. Few of us in there, and I actually did nothing of anything to help in this matter. But it was great to see a couple of devs and Brian get together and kind of just kick off this initiative. They got it done, and then there was something to do with the API. It actually was meant to use on-chain data, and they quickly fixed everything up and got this listed. So it's great. Community members doing what they can to help out any other protocols on Icon. So it was a real good outcome. Good to see. Then I think that's all the news we have. Icongrapher, though, there was one other bit of news I think we missed last week, but it's kind of cool. Iconsphere is working on it, the Icon Web Studio. Do you know much about it? I know it's basically like a building environment in your web browser, right?
Yeah, I saw it pop up I think a week or two ago,
Mm.
and so yeah, as far as I could tell, there hasn't been a whole lot put out about it, but it does look a nice tool to be able to do a little bit more development activity within the actual kind of browser interface. So obviously not something going to get everyone super excited, but obviously it's not one of those nice little tools that we have available that a chunk of the community will find useful and certainly helpful as well.
Yeah, look, agree. Until just a moment ago, I didn't realize, but the guys are obviously a fan of the show because they started the tweet off like this: "Keep an eye on Icon Web Studio." I did see that the first time. I'm like, so thanks, guys. I'm going to take that as a shout out to the show. But yeah, this is kind of cool. It comes back to the CBS proposal we saw as well regarding all the various libraries and things they're trying to create to enable, and this is just one more thing to add to the aid of anyone who wants to build, which is great. Now, I think that's all the news I can graph. Anything we missed?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Cool. So, just as always, a reminder: we're not giving financial advice. These are our views. Our views. We're trying to just get the news. Even when we share market insights, it's just our thought process on it. We are no experts in the matter, although we may, in our minds, hope to be. But markets react in different manners. So please do not take this as financial advice. To do your own research and make sure whatever your investment is at your own free will. But once again, thank you for everyone for tuning in. Just a reminder, in case you missed it at the start, I skipped it. There's an Iron Icon competition going on with the goal to recruit our community so we can engage with our community more. Icongrapher has donated several NFTs from the NFT treasury, and we will be giving it out just for following and joining the group. So definitely, if you haven't already, jump on, find out about the competition, and follow everything you need to do to make sure you could win an NFT that's currently up for grabs. As always, thanks everyone for listening. Like, subscribe, share this around, and if you have any views, thoughts, insights you want us to talk through or look into, please let us know in our Discord or Telegram chats. Take care, everyone.
See ya.